this video, we're going to be talking about how to 10x your sales and how that focus is actually easier than to just double or 2x your sales. Before we jump into this, you guys have to understand the problem. And the problem is anytime somebody sets a massive goal, like to 10x, go from 100K to $1 million, they think they have to do 10x the input, work 10x the hours. And while it's partially true, it's mostly false. 2x is a linear game. 10x is an exponential game. 2x means you have to do more effort, more reps, more volume. You just double everything. It actually is hard. To do 10x, even if you work just 20 hours a week and 10x your hours, that's 200 in a week. We only have 168 hours every single week. So the question is, what do you do? To 10x, you have to change two things, your activity and your identity. Okay, I'm going to be deep diving on activity first and helping you guys understand how the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, applies to sales specifically in growing your sales at 10x. So step one is doing more of less things. Remove 80% of what you're currently doing and do the 20% that is yielding exponential results. So let's deep dive on this 80-20 rule and tailor it specifically to sales and sales leadership. What does it look like? Most people understand this Pareto principle when it comes to sales and sales leadership. And it's the fact that 80% of a team's production comes from 20% of the individuals. And so the application here is where most people fail in leadership is they disperse their time amongst their reps, their people, equally. So in other words, if you blocked off 10 hours to train your reps and you have 10 reps, you're failing if you're putting 1 hour into each guy. So what you have to do is cut your time, okay, with the bottom 80%. You're going to give them just 20% of the time. In your top 20%, you're going to give 80% of the time. Now, I beg to push this principle even further and say it's 5 and 95. Put 95% of your eggs in the basket of your 5%, your top producers. Okay, these are the future leadership. These are the arm of any sales team. Even if it's just 1, 2, or 3 guys, you begin by making sure you have the right guys and pour it into them and give them disproportionate time, attention, money, and help. Now, let's break this down. If you're an individual, don't have a sales team, and you're just focused about your production, let's jump on this. I'm going to show you guys specific examples. So of all the things that you do in a day as a salesperson, you have to ask yourself this question: which of these activities are most important? Which are the hardest, but yet pay the best? Okay. In other words, which have the most leverage? So first of all, let's break through all the activities of a salesperson. All right. So they're setting appointments. You're generating proposals or creating quotes. You confirm appointments. You're closing deals. You're generating referrals. There's project management. There's marketing and ads. Now, of these, which ones do you do or which ones do you delegate? Now, whether you work for a large enterprise or not, whether stuff is automated or not, it doesn't matter. I'm going to show you which of these activities has the most leverage and how you should prioritize them. Okay. Number one, setting appointments. Do I do it? Do I delegate it? First thing, if you're a great closer and you have the ability and you're good at that, okay, that is a higher value skill than setting an appointment, scheduling a prospect. That's the outbound side. Okay. When you're in front of the prospect closing, that's the highest leverage skill for most sales jobs. So if you can, and you have the right guy, you delegate the appointment setting. For some people selling virtually online, AI can do a lot of this for you. So this setting appointments is something you delegate as long as you have the reps to do it. If you don't, it is something you have to do yourself. You can't avoid it. I always say prosperity comes from prospecting. So prospecting is setting appointments. The only time you don't do the ugly is if you have people you can delegate and duplicate the success with. Some people might say, okay, hey, well, if I don't have those people or I've got okay people, do I go spend most of my time recruiting them? And I would tell you, it depends. If you've had massive success, I mean, you're the top 1% in results for consistent months or even years in your industry, and you've mastered it and you can prove it with receipts, then yes, spend more time on recruiting. But most people, if they've gotten those results are generally so attractive, you don't have to try to attract people. You don't have to try to recruit people because you will naturally attract them because great results begets great people. People are attracted to the results and they'll come to you. All right, when it comes to generating proposals and quotes, anything related to that, delegate it. I don't need to explain anything else with that. So when it comes to generating proposals, quotes, etc., that should be a no-brainer. Delegate it. It's not worth your time, not even 2 minutes. And some guys might say, hey, Nick, it takes me literally 30 seconds. Yeah, but if you do that 10 times a day, it's your bandwidth and attention. Confirming appointments, delegate it. You can have AI do this, or you can hire somebody hourly, or you can have another rep do this for you. All right, closing deals. Obviously, any great salesperson, this should be your number one focus. There's two types of time. You have to understand this principle. There's major time in sales. There's minor time in sales. Major time is time in front of a qualified prospect. Minor time is anything else. So all the other things we're talking about, minor time. Now, what people don't understand is you can break this down even further, all right? There's within closing, there is selling them, and then there's filling out paperwork, closing the deal. What do I mean by this? When I was selling solar, part of the way I was able to make $200,000 a month was I realized, okay, these solar appointments are usually an hour to an hour and a half long, but the sale is made in the first 15 minutes. That was the hardest part. And so I got so good at this system with my team, I would go run the first 15 minutes of the appointment, get them so bought in, hedge all their objections, build a little bit of rapport, and then pass the baton off to the next guy. And he would close the deal, do all the paperwork, the boring stuff that took an hour. Great salespeople think they need to do every part of the sale, but that's often the biggest mistake. Because I walked away after getting the hardest part of the sale done, I was able to reach and do the hardest part of the sale the first 15 minutes and do about 10 times the volume, taking my income from $20,000 a month to $200,000 a month. All right, then you have follow-up. Follow-up is not something you can miss, okay? So it's so critical. It takes so little time. So I say do it, but also automate it, okay? Don't delegate it because it's so important. It took me less than 15 minutes every single day. It was just a simple habit to follow up with people, okay? And I'm not saying, hey, it's Nick, I'm following up, right? I was texting them, whether it's cracking a joke or talking about life, or sending them an update on something, right? Like I always wanted to be top of mind for people, whether I'm selling them or I'm recruiting them. And so there are ways you can obviously automate this. I do believe the personal touch does add quite a bit of impact. And for how little time it takes, that's what we're talking about is efficiency, maximizing things that are getting you 80% of results. I don't think this is something you should delegate. I do think it's something you should do and you should automate. Getting referrals, obviously not something to delegate. It is something you want to do. It is just part of your sales process and post-sales process. And listen, if you're not getting referrals, let me sell you on referrals. So people that you sell that were referred by another customer or client, they stay 20% longer, okay? If you have a service-based product, they pay 20% more, so you'll make more commission. They're 3 to 5 times easier to close, so the close rate is sky high, should be 99%. Now here's the big kicker. They are 4 times more likely to refer other people. So once you get that referral domino going, it keeps going. So when I've interviewed people that have dominated in sales game with referrals, and from my experience too, you think they've mastered the whole process with every person. They invite every person, but they usually get a couple of these dominoes going and it creates a chain effect. So referrals are not something you should delegate. It is something that should absolutely be a priority. Again, it's a high leverage activity that takes very little time. But it's often something that I see most salespeople, especially the talented ones, they just let it slip through the cracks. Okay, marketing and ads. This one depends. For most salespeople, no matter the industry, they're going to delegate it. In other words, they're going to have their company do it for them, or they're going to pay another third-party service to do it for them. The only people I suggest getting into the marketing side as a salesperson and investing more time is if you have strong aspirations to get into marketing, build a personal brand, which I think are good things. That's what I do. But it does take a massive amount of time and energy and focus. And so unless it's something you're really serious about, don't worry about it. Just delegate it. So all those items we covered, guys, from generating referrals, closing deals, setting appointments, creating proposals, et cetera, okay? That should be the majority of an entire sales rep's day. The goal is to remove 80% of the clutter, focus on the 20%, double down, triple down on that 20%. I helped you guys identify, for most people, it's going to be closing deals, specifically the initial part of the deal, okay? It's going to be referrals and it's going to be follow-up. Now, listen, the big thing here is just if you were to audit your whole week, okay, you have 168 hours in a week. How many of those 168 hours are you in front of a prospect? And yes, I know you're like, Nick, I sleep 8 hours a day. Yeah, I know. But like of your working days, if you're working 40 hours a week, okay, and you're just taking it easy, how many of those 40 hours are you in front of a qualified prospect? For most sales reps, guys, I'm telling you, it's 20 to 40%. And this is the easiest way to double your sales. I have another video training on this. The fast way to double your sales is not doing more volume, and it's not even getting better at selling. It's just maximizing time to put it in front of qualified prospects. Guys, if you're looking for that video, it is titled How to Double Your Sales Without Working Harder and with Zero Skill. All right, the 80-20 rule, guys, I'm going to apply this to sales leadership, all right, management. From all the rules, I'm going to fly through these real quick, read them off my laptop. You have sales enablement. You have area assignment. You have correlation and sales trainings. 1v1s with your reps, all right? Shadowing your reps, role playing with your reps, KPI accountability, payroll, pay-related issues, miscellaneous problems, recruiting meetings, onboarding meetings, incentives, team activities, yada, yada. The list goes on and on. There are so many things that you could be filling your time up with. It's important to slow down and realize which of these activities are yielding the highest result. Now, that doesn't mean you remove them. You have to do some things, like all these things have to be done, but are you the one to do it? Can somebody else do this? Can it be automated with AI? Maybe you do it, but can we reduce it from 1 hour to 30 minutes, from 30 minutes to 15 minutes, from 5 times a week to twice a week? So of all these activities, I'm going to highlight which are most important. Now, remember, I'm speaking from my personal experience, okay? I've made many mistakes and I've had a lot of successes and wins. And so I'm sharing what has worked for me. Now, this will obviously vary from person to person to some degree, depending on your skill set. Now, for most people, it's going to be pretty dang close to this. The principle and the foundation of the higher leverage activities remains the same for most people, okay? Number one, running correlation and sales trainings. This should be on the list. This should not be something you delegate. You want the best guy, if it's you, to do this, okay? And you want to do more of this if you can. Doesn't mean you do it 10 times a week. Doesn't mean you do it necessarily 5 or 6 times a week, but it should be done almost every day and it should be a priority. Okay, now obviously you're going to get a law of diminishing returns depending on your team size. If you're going over 45 minutes to an hour, it should be quick to the point. Role play should be a part of that. All right. 1v1s with your reps, with your team as a leader. If you want to grow and you want to get disproportionate leverage and have exponential growth instead of just linear growth, the one-on-one is critical, not just doing it, but doing it right. So I'm going to break down a system of not just how to do it. Okay. I'm not going to be emphasizing the how to run the one-on-one specifically, what to cover in this video. We cover that in other trainings, but we're going to be talking about the cadence and the prioritization, applying the Pareto principle at different levels of leadership. For example, if you are the office manager, okay, you're the direct leader over the salespeople, you don't meet with all your reps at the same cadence. Your top 20% you meet with weekly, okay? Sometimes daily. Now your top 5%, I'd argue you want to meet with daily. Now, the bottom 80% of your team, which should be producing roughly 20% of the results, you're going to meet with them every other week, face to face. These are usually 10 to 15, 20-minute meetings, okay? The first one you run, if you're new to this, it's not going to take 15, 20 minutes. It should take 30 minutes to an hour, maybe more. But as you do these consistently, they are quicker and quicker. Now, one thing I'll hit on this with the one-on-ones, you always start out with their numbers. Make them accountable. Make them tell you what their goal was and what they did. Not just what they did and what they're going to do. What did they say they're going to do? What did they do? Look at the gap. And then from what they did to what they're going to do, make sure it's on pace. Okay. For example, if they're saying, hey, I'm going to talk to 100 people this week and I'm going to set 10. Well, that's a 10% set rate. If their set rate historically is 5%, you got to tell them, well, that's not going to work out unless you just had some magic pill that has doubled your set rate. So it's important as a leader that you track this stuff. I can't stress this enough. I've seen so many guys let this slip through the cracks because they're not paying attention. And it really comes down to how much do you care about your people? All right. Now, senior management, regional manager, VP, whatever you are, okay? Titles don't matter, but just to help you guys understand, these guys should be meeting with the top 20% monthly and the bottom 80% of reps and individuals that produce every quarter. So the regional senior manager is on a monthly and quarterly cadence. The office manager should be on a weekly and every other week cadence. All right. The other thing you're doing is shadowing your people. All right. That is something you do not want to cut out. Now, here's what I do. I literally, because my time is so strapped, I cannot shadow everybody. And so I have to pick the best. I go to like the top 5%, the people that I can see our team developing into the future leaders of our company and our sales force. And I'm picking them to go shadow them to make them better than they even are. Now, this is the mistake most people make is they look, I'm going to go shadow the struggling guy. Yeah, you got to do that. The office manager, the setter captains, whoever's they're one tier up in leadership, they need to do that, right? But I'm talking like really pouring into people, high level leadership. I'm going to go pour into the best. because that's where I get the most leverage. That's where we're going to have the biggest impact. These reps will stay longer, they will produce more, and they'll ultimately recruit and train more people and perpetuate the success. Then there's recruiting meetings. This is not something you delegate. Unless you suck at them, then yeah, delegate it, okay? And the only reason you would delegate it is if you have someone above you that has the bandwidth and time to help you run these recruiting meetings, which is very often the case. And if you don't have that, I'm sorry, go find someone to partner with and work with, or become really good at the skill, okay? And recruiting is just like selling, except it's a slow burn game. It's a empathize, understand them before you regurgitate what your agenda is, how your company's the best, yada, yada. Okay. Now, the other final thing is team activities. You cannot delegate this. You got to do it. Now, for me personally, I loved hosting and putting these things on, but I wasn't the best at necessarily running it. And so I would pull in help to help me run it, right? I'm not the hype man. I'm not the guy that brings energy like that. So I bring in other people to help me with that, but it's still something you got to show up for. So zooming out here, we just covered a ton of the roles and responsibilities of a sales team leader. And prior to that, we were covering the roles and responsibilities of a sales rep and what should be in the top 20% focus and removing the rest, okay? Remember, the game is first removal. As I've gotten around some billionaires, the common theme is they just had to cut out a lot of things that most people aren't willing to cut out. It's not about doing more. It's about doing less and just putting more time into a few endeavors. Most of us in sales leadership are like a bunch of chickens running around with our heads cut off. It's just chaos, okay? I've often said from being a CEO to being an office manager, in some ways being a CEO is easier. Not because I'm behind a desk, but because a sales manager is one of the hardest roles. You have so many things, but you have to play at the highest role. You have to empower other people and give them roles and responsibilities. And you have to let go and communicate to people you're letting go. This is where everybody struggles to some degree. Going back to the 10X and 2X guys, when it comes to weekly planning, this is when I am looking at all these activities, my prospects, my recruiting prospects, my team. Those are the 3 buckets I always looked at. And I'm prioritizing who's the top 20%. Are they on my calendar? Cool. Who else is urgent and needs help this week? Okay. And then I'm looking at, okay, what other activities I'm doing from marketing to collabs and partnerships that bring high leverage. Okay, you're thinking long-term and you're making sure that stuff's on your calendar. A 2X way of thinking is day-to-day. This is how a lot of people operate. They plan out their day. You know, you don't win big doing daily planning. You win big doing weekly planning, because it's not about doing 3 big things every day. It's about doing 3 big things every week, because some really big things are not going to be accomplished in one day. Things that really move the needle and drive more revenue and growth and recruiting for you, your team, your company, whatever your endeavor is, they take time to build those endeavors. 10X mindset optimizes on a week, 2X optimizes on a day. So the key here is on your weekly planning, what are the 3 big things that are going to create leverage and have this domino effect, right? It could be a mentorship meeting with some of your top leaders. It could be a leadership meeting. It could be a specific training or cultural event that you're running with your team. It could be a piece of marketing. It could be creating a new onboarding process. Okay, it's going to vary depending on where you're at in the business, where you're at with your sales and your progress. But this is such an easy way to spend 15 minutes to maximize the 168 hours you have in that week to dominate. So you could have the perfect structure, the 80-20 principle, the perfect time allocation, and doing endeavors into the right activities at the right time. But if your identity and your belief system is not where it needs to be, 10X is impossible. Now, here's what's cool, all right? The 10X mindset requires you to change 2 things within your identity, and it's your story and it's your standard. What story are you telling yourself? Are you a victim mindset or are you victor mindset? Is everything happening to you or is everything happening for you? As I've gotten around successful people on my podcast, the Rainmakers podcast, and gotten mentorship and proximate events from other entrepreneurs and sales titans and leaders, the story is always the same. They've all had adversity. In fact, most of these people have had substantially more suffering, pain, and adversity than people who have less success. So what's the difference? It's not that they had it made out to them or their parents were rich. It's actually, they had more adversity. They just had a different paradigm. The lens you see things through is everything. For me personally, I got divorced, a 3 kids, single dad. I had sold my dream home. I had sold my pest control company. I had times where I ran out of money, completely broke, was bawling my eyes out thinking, what am I doing? What's the point of this? In other words, I felt like a massive failure. I'm sure some of you guys can relate to some extent. I'm sure some of you guys at some point in time in your life can maybe relate. If not, God bless you. You're lucky. Actually, I'd say you're not lucky because it doesn't help your growth and your progress. But anyways, what I'm trying to tell you is I had every reason to throw a pity party. And the truth is, I did. I sat on my ass for a month and quit and sat on my ass and played video games all day. After my divorce, 6 years, working hard to build something, having it crash and burn, my company sold, reputation tarnished, it's kind of hard to be motivated in that circumstance. So I sat on my ass for 4 months, did nothing. And after that, I got to a point where I'm like, you know what? This is bullcrap. I've got to shift my perspective. I'm at the lowest point. There's not many men that get lower than this. And if nothing else, I'm going to make a comeback and inspire other men. Because if I can do it, I can inspire other men to break free too. And I'll tell you, that was the force that drove me to achieve, to do more, to impact and serve. And so it went from like this self-loathe to like selflessness of impact and inspire other people. And if you can get out of that mindset and shift into what's in it for other people, how can I inspire other people? And this isn't happening to me, this is happening for me. I shifted this whole thing of adversity and all this crap in my life. In one paradigm, it's the worst thing ever. In another light, it's an amazing story just waiting to be told. The comeback. If you watch the best stories and movies of all time, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, okay, they have this comeback story. They have this hero. They have a great villain. Nobody likes a story that doesn't go through a challenge or a twist. And so I hope that you guys can shift your perspective, come closer to God, give yourself grace, and then look outside of yourself and think bigger. Okay. When you start taking on this 10X thought, it's a selfless thought of impact. Okay. There's 4 reasons that drive somebody's purpose or their why, right? It starts with survival, pay your bills, pay rent, just make ends meet. Then it comes status. And that's like getting ahead, buying a nice car, you know? And then there's freedom. You don't have to worry about anything. And that's a driver for people. That's a reason why. Freedom for them, their family, their posterity. And then the highest level of why and purpose, which cultivates the greatest results. The greatest entrepreneurs are driven by this. The greatest salespeople are driven by this. It's a sense of purpose. Purpose is impact on other people. Okay. Now, if you're like, oh yeah, it's my friends and my family, I want to impact them. That's freedom, my friend. Okay, I'm talking purpose is much bigger. Guys like Elon Musk are operating out of purpose. Trillionaire, he's not doing it for more money. In fact, he knows where we're going with our financial model. We're probably not even going to rely on money in the future. We're all going to be just given money, it sounds like. But my point being is guys like him don't do what they're doing for money. They do it for impact. And because they create such disproportionate impact, they're paid disproportionate amounts of money. The more you give, the more you get. And so you need to shift your identity to how can I give more? How is everything that God has put me through my life, my adversity, the things that I've put myself through, consequences of my actions and the natural consequences that weren't my fault, how can I shift the thinking that everything is happening for me? How can I see that glass that is 95% empty and see it as 5% full? Because what you focus on amplifies and grows and you get more of. Look, 2X thinking is on the past. 10X thinking is in the future. And when you can see your story, even if you're at the bottom of it, but you can see it further down the road, it's going to go from train wreck to triumph, from setback to setup, from self-loathing to selflessness and inspiring other people. Now, the second part of this, guys, of identity shift is a standard. All right. And the standard is what you say no to. A standard is you have a line in the sand. And there is no standard unless you hold the standard. And this applies to sales leadership in many ways. One example is when you have a certain metric, you have to draw a line in the sand. If reps don't hit it, they're cut. You give them a week to get back on track. Otherwise, you cut them. All right. And it's not ruthlessness, it's love. Because if you don't do that, you're going to pull down the rest of the team. You need to have standards like this for you in your life. Okay. When you set commitments, there's internal integrity and there's external integrity. Everybody focuses on external integrity. Do you follow through on what you say to other people? Do you hold your commitments? But what's most important that the world doesn't look at is, do you hold the commitments you make to yourself? If you said you're going to go sell and make $20,000 this month, did you do it? Sometimes lower the target so you can get this authority of belief in yourself, this internal integrity that said, you know what? I do what I say I'm going to do. One of the best leaders in my company is this guy. I'll push him with his goal and see, stretch him and see what he's capable of doing. And I say, I believe you're capable of doing this. And then he'll say, yeah, I can do that, but I'm going to do just a little bit less, which is more than he was doing before. But he's like, I'm going to do this because I know I can do this. And then he does it. And then he raises the bar again and again. And that's how overachievers, that's how the best salespeople, the best sales leaders operate from. In life, guys, we don't get what we want. We get what we tolerate. So shift your identity to being, I'm a person that doesn't miss going to the gym. I'm a person that is a reader. Okay. And as you shift your goals from just numbers and metrics, which are important, okay, they need to be measurable, achievable, right? Smart goals, all the things you guys know. But is there an identity factor in that goal? James Clear in Atomic Habits drives this home, guys. He teaches that those who attach their identity to a specific metric, instead of losing 10 pounds, I'm going to become a lifter. I'm going to become an athlete. I am an athlete. They are about 10 times more likely to achieve that outcome than those who don't attach their identity to it. So again, this is a total reframe. And when you start thinking in 10X, it seems impossible unless you change these things. You change this 80-20 rule of your activity and you change your identity. And what happens is you start shifting your identity in this goal. It forces you to think different, right? When I started building my company, I'm like, okay, to achieve these results at this velocity, I'm going to need an operator. I don't have an operator at this level, but you find what you're looking for. Because my higher goal, I started looking for new things. And guess what? I found him. Seek and ye shall find. So with that, guys, I want to challenge you, whatever your goal is, raise the bar, raise your standard, shift your identity to who you're becoming and the impact you want to make. Focus in on what is your 20% that is driving 80% of the results, and say no to the rest. It's going to be hard, but do it. Thanks for watching. If this brought you value, subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And then please share if this was impactful in any way. Share it with a friend, family member, coworker, somebody that could benefit from the message. God bless.